Hey everyone, and welcome. I'm Captain Pankaj Pahil. With over 17 years of experience training pilots all over the globe, I'm here to guide you through the intricacies of the DGCA syllabus. Welcome to this elite ground school session. Today, we're undertaking a really precise organ-by-organ masterclass. We're going to distill the exact physiological capabilities and, more importantly, the critical limitations of your visual, auditory, and vestibular systems. Our syllabus focus right now is specifically on DGCA human performance and limitations, parts 7 and 8.
But before we get into the heavy technical weeds, I really want you to internalize something. The sky demands not just your passion, but your absolute physiological discipline. Master your human limits, or I promise you, they will master you. In aviation, knowing your physical boundaries isn't just some textbook theory, it's a literal, non-negotiable safety tool. Your life and the lives of the people sitting behind you absolutely depend on this discipline.
All right, so here's our game plan for today's explainer. We're covering everything from vision mechanics to dark adaptation, barotrauma, the balance mechanism, and finally spatial illusions. Now remember, we operate on a strict zero-skip policy in this room. Literally every single fact we cover today is a high-probability DGCA exam question. So let's jump right in.
When you really look at human system architecture, sensory dominance becomes immediately clear. In an aircraft, roughly 80% of your situational awareness input is purely visual. It dictates your outside reference, your instrument cross-check, your traffic avoidance, the whole shebang. But, and here's a massive DGCA exam tip for you, there is a complete mechanical separation between hearing and balance in your ear. What does that mean for us? It means a pilot can be sitting in the cockpit, hearing radio communications perfectly, and yet simultaneously suffer from deadly spatial disorientation.
Okay, moving to Section 1, the eye and vision mechanics.
The anatomical foundation of your vision relies on two very different types of photoreceptors right on your retina. You've got roughly 100 million rods located out in the periphery, and these are basically your dim light detectors. They pick up black, white, and movement. On the flip side, you have exactly 6 million cones clustered right in the center in the fovea, and these are entirely responsible for sharp, high-definition daytime color vision. In the cockpit, this anatomy literally dictates your day versus night flying capabilities. Now, for your DGCA exam, memorize these exact ratios, 100 million rods to 6 million cones. The examiners love to pull this exact multiple choice question on almost every single paper.
You know, human biology actually acts as a bit of a bottleneck in high-speed flight. There is a built-in physiological delay between the moment a photon hits your eye and when your muscles actually react. You have to detect, recognize, decide, and finally move. Practically speaking, that's a 6-second total human-machine reaction loop. At 1,000 knots closing speed, that means you travel about 3 nautical miles before your aircraft even begins to evade a mid-air collision. Write this down for sure. Human reaction time depends strictly on the closing relative speed of the two aircraft.
Let's shift gears to Section 2, dark adaptation and acuity.
Biologically, night flying all comes down to adaptation. If you just casually walk onto a pitch-dark ramp, you are functionally blind for those first few minutes. That's exactly why we use dim red cockpit lighting for night operations. It preserves those sensitive rods. I want to aggressively stress this for your test, so pay attention. You absolutely must memorize this exact timeline triplet. 10 seconds for bright light adaptation, 7 minutes for partial cone dark adaptation, and a full 30 minutes for complete rod dark adaptation.
Now, understanding adaptation also means understanding its enemies. Things like chemical imbalances and hypoxia absolutely destroy your night vision. Pre-flight, this means you avoid smoking, ensure you've got a proper diet, wear sunglasses during the bright daytime, and use supplemental oxygen anytime you're above 5,000 feet at night. A guaranteed exam question will cover the mnemonic ACCB. That stands for altitude above 5,000 feet, carbon monoxide, lack of carrots or vitamin A, and bright sunlight. Memorize those. They are the 4 dark adaptation killers.
To counteract foveal blindness at night, your standard daytime techniques just fail. Think about it. If you stare directly at a dim star or a distant traffic light, the image lands right on the fovea. Since the fovea has 0 rods, the target just vanishes. So, to apply this practically, you use the night scanning technique. You have to look 15 to 20 degrees off-center to force the image onto your rod-rich peripheral vision. Also, mark this down regarding daytime flying in featureless skies. In a totally empty visual field, your eye's resting focus automatically drifts inward to just 1 to 2 meters in front of your face. It's called empty field myopia. You have to actively force your eyes to focus out on the wingtip to break it.
All right, let's move on to Section 3, the ear, hearing, and barotrauma.
Anatomically, your ear is neatly divided into 3 sections: outer, middle, and inner, which are all connected by 3 tiny little bones called ossicles. Operationally, this biological system translates acoustic pressure waves into electrical signals that your brain can actually understand. But the absolutely crucial takeaway for your paper is its dual-function architecture. The ear performs 2 completely separate jobs, receiving sound waves for hearing and acting as a complex balance and acceleration director. And this brings us to a major physiological hazard involving the eustachian tube. This tube connects your middle ear to the back of your throat, and it basically acts like a one-way flat valve. During a climb, the air inside your ear expands and escapes easily, no problem. But on descent, ambient pressure rises, which slams that valve shut. This traps a vacuum that actually bows your eardrum inward, and trust me, it hurts. This is otic barotrauma, and it leads to a critical, red-coded safety limitation. A pilot must never, ever fly with blocked ears or a severe head cold, period.
So what happens if you do encounter a pressure block up there? You must actively equalize by forcing air back up that eustachian tube. Follow this standard operating procedure. First, try swallowing deliberately with pinched nostrils. Second, force a yawn. Third, if that doesn't work, execute the Valsalva maneuver by blowing gently against a pinched nose and a closed mouth. And if it still remains blocked, you execute a step descent or even reclimb to reduce that external pressure. The examiner will absolutely test you on this fact. Descent is, without a doubt, the most dangerous phase of flight for barotrauma.
Let's talk about preserving your absolute greatest career asset, your hearing. Noise-induced hearing loss and presbycusis, which is just the natural loss of high-tone hearing as we age, make active noise reduction, or ANR headsets, an absolute necessity in the cockpit nowadays. Lock in these specific numbers for your test. The normal audible range for human is 16 Hz to 20 kHz. Task performance impairment starts at 80 decibels, and actual measurable physiological impairment begins at 90 decibels. Don't forget those.
Moving right along to Section 4, the balance mechanism.
Inside the inner ear, your vestibular matrix relies on tiny mechanical acceleration sensors to tell your brain which way is up and exactly how you're moving. But during your instrument flying cross-check, you have to remember one terrifying truth. Your body will lie to you. So you must understand exactly how these sensors fail. To prep for the exam, we have to strictly differentiate between how the body detects linear movement versus angular movement.
It's actually a pretty neat division of labor biologically. The otoliths are these little chalk-like crystals that sense linear acceleration. Think of the pushback into your seat during a takeoff roll or the straight-down pull of gravity. On the other hand, the semicircular canals are 3 fluid-filled tubes, all oriented in different axes, purely to detect angular acceleration, meaning roll, pitch, and yaw during a turn. Your exam strategy here is just a simple matching exercise. Otoliths equal linear acceleration. Semicircular canals equal angular acceleration. Easy points if you remember that.
And finally, Section 5, sensory conflicts and illusions.
Our brains rely on a very strict chain of command, a hierarchy of orientation. Operationally, this dictates our green-coded standard procedure. When your senses disagree, always prioritize your visual instruments. Commit this strict reliability ranking to memory right now. Vision is your primary and most reliable sense. The vestibular apparatus in the ear, that's secondary, and it's only partially reliable. The somatosensory system, which is the physical pressure on your skin and joints, the seat of your pants flying, is tertiary and absolutely 100% not reliable at all.
Let's look at exactly how that vestibular system ends up betraying you. It's all about fluid lag in your semicircular canals. When you enter a turn, the fluid inside the canal initially lags behind, which bends the sensory hairs and correctly signals to your brain that you're turning. But if you hold that turn at a steady rate, the fluid eventually catches up, the hairs straighten right back out. The deadly result? Your brain falsely perceives that you have returned to wings-level flight, even while you're still banked at 30 degrees. I'm going to hammer home this exam rule. There is no fluid flow at a steady speed. The vestibular apparatus alone simply cannot detect steady-state motion.
Which naturally brings us to the formal definition of an illusion. What is it?
It's basically a mathematical mismatch where what your senses detect does not equal what your brain expects. We actually apply the 6 Gestalt principles of human perception to modern glass cockpit display designs just to prevent this kind of confusion. And be super aware of this atmospheric perspective trap for your test. Flying in crystal clear air creates an illusion that distant objects, like an approaching runway, are much closer than they actually are. This tricks pilots into making early, very dangerous descents.
So, the crucial takeaway of this entire masterclass really boils down to a single question. Imagine you're in zero visibility, hard instrument meteorological conditions. Your inner ear is absolutely screaming at you that the aircraft is in a descending right turn, but your attitude indicator shows perfectly level flight. Will you have the discipline to ignore your own body and trust the panel? True airmanship isn't just about stick and rudder skills. It's about overcoming your biological limitations through structured knowledge and unshakable discipline. Master your physiology, and you will master the sky. Keep studying hard, and I'll see you guys in the next session.